Forgot to record the video. Okay, so when I click on the button, it's going to call the take picture function. Let's see. Okay. So now that we get the data, we should send the request to the server. Fetch API images, and since I have a lot of data, you can see there's a lot of data here. Since there's a lot of data, I want to send a post request, right? Method post headers, content type is application JSON, and now body JSON.stringify image data is going to be image string. So I'm gonna make take picture return the image string. That way I can call this function. So now whenever I click on it, I send the request to the server. My server doesn't do anything yet, so I need to get the data here and then save it. So there's instruction. I finished this, send the request to the server. So this is the last step I need to do. So on the server, let's see, server. Oh, my server needs to read the body. So I need to do JSON so it knows how to read. But since the image is really big, I need to give it a limit. Increase the limit to 10 megabytes. So the picture could be really big. So I need to use this middleware. And now I can do app.post API images request response. So const image data equals request.body. So I have my image data, and then according to the instructions, I just have to write that to file. So fs.write file. Going to use slash, I'm gonna write it into my public folder so I can access it. And then I'm going to call it demo.png. Okay. Rest.json, and send back a response saying successful. Cool. So now when a request comes in, I'm gonna write to the file and then send back response success. And the file is called demo.png. So now, if you go to the website and I take a picture, I should be able to go to my website /demo.png. Oh, and it doesn't work. So something bad happened. Let's see. FS is not defined, so I need to include the library. Okay, now let's try it again. So I'm going to picture, and then I'm going to go to my website /demo.png, enter. Then again, I got an error. What is it this time? Write file is not a function. So it's capital F. Let's see. Third time's the charm. I'm going to take a picture. Then when I refresh the page, it's there. So I'm going to take another picture. And then if I go to demo.png, it shows up. Right, so that's good. Now I want all the pictures that I've taken previously to show up here, show up at the bottom. So let's set that one up. So after the canvas, I'm gonna have an HR element and a div called image container. And then now I need to make a change on the server because right now all of the image are the same name. That's going to cause problems, right? So instead of making it the same names, I don't want to overwrite the same file, just keep overwriting it. Instead, I want a new file. So I'm just gonna do a simple date.now. And then instead of sending a generic success message, I want to send back the URL. So cons file name equals date.now.png. This should be file name. Now when I send back the URL, I do slash file name. This would be link. The link is called file name. My server side is done. Now my server side is responding with a new link for file name. So on my front end, after I send the request, when I get the response, I need to convert it to a JSON object. And then data, I want to push. I have an array to keep track of all the links. And then I do links.push data.link console.log links. So I'm gonna print out links so we can all see what's going on. Now I'm gonna refresh the page and take a picture. See that? That is one file here. I'm gonna take another picture. Here's another file. Take another picture. Here's a third file. Another picture. Here's a fourth file. So every time I click, it's gonna be more and more pictures. So I need a render function to display everything in. So let's create that. Const render function. So render function, I want to display everything inside the image container. So select the element. Then now image inner dot inner HTML equals link. So I'm gonna build some HTML string, and it's going to have a element to take you to the link. And also image element so you can see the image. So now that we have the render function, instead of console.log, we're going to call the render function. So the render function is going to set the inner HTML to a big string, reduce ticks in string. And then every time for every element, it's going to add in an A tag and an image link tag. So take a picture. Showed up. 2. Showed up again, right? Here's the image. These images are too big, so if I add a CSS, I can make it smaller. So the image is going to be the same width and the height as the video. Cool. And then I want this to be all inside a div so we can see better what is what. I want the link to open up in a new page, so target equals underscore blank. Now let's take a look. first picture, second picture, third picture. Sure. So now I can take as many pictures as I want. If I click on it, it opens up the picture, the new element. So that's it. We're done with problem 8. So it's pretty straightforward. I can do this now. If you guys have any questions, you can message in the chat room. I accidentally added all of the PNG files. Unadd it. Cool. Solves problem 8 of JS5. So that's it. We are done with problem 8. Image text extraction, that's still waiting. Selfie queen, we just submitted. And then the last part is MemeChat. So MemeChat here looks a lot like the previous challenge, because you have to create an image. So instead of creating a new branch from master, I'm going to create a new branch from here. So from JS5 problem 8, I'm going to create a new branch called challenge. Last challenge. Cool. Now I'm on the last challenge. I'm gonna still use the challenge 8 folder. I don't. Yeah. And so now if you look at this challenge, when the user first goes to your website, you need to send them to a simple login page. Do we have a login page? We don't have a login page. What about our previous challenges? I remember in problem 5, we had a login page. Challenge 5, public. So there is not only a login page, but a sign up page as well. So I remember in challenge 5, we have these. So instead of rebuilding it, we can use this. We can use these files that we already have. So to use that, what we do is we make the static, the previous folder, challenge 5, public. Okay. Now by making all the files inside challenge 5 public open, we now have the sign up page. Cool. So now that we have that, let's create a username. Let's call it SB1, S at B1. It's a very straightforward email. And then password, let's make the password today's date. Then go to network, submit. Awesome, I think I just logged in. Let's see, I just created an account and I got the JWT token. That's cool. So now if I send a request to API/session, I should get back my user information. Let's see if I do. So fetch this URL. Forbidden, unauthorized. What if I send it with cookies? Send it with cookies. Now I'm okay. Send it with cookies. Cool. So when this page loads, I'm going to send a request to see if the cookies exist. If I have a JWT token. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. So now what I'm going to do is, when the page first loads, I'm going to send a request. Convert the response to a JSON. And then if data does not exist, or data does not have JWT token, then we want to send the user back to login.html. Okay, so if I refresh the page, there is a JWT token, so everything should work. Now I'm going to try clearing the cookie. No, I don't think I can clear the cookie from here. Delete all session cookies? Maybe. Let's see. Sending a request. Yep, seems like it's sending a request and it's getting the JWT token back. It's good. So now, once I have the authentication, I can set a variable, let JWT is empty string, and then JWT equals data.jwt. So I'm going to set the data into this variable. And now, when I send the request to the server, I pass in an authorization header. Bearer T. So I pass the JWT token in all of my requests to the server. Here's JWT token to the server. Now I'm going to click on take a picture. And in this request, if you look here, in the request header, it should be passing my JWT token, which it is, right? So now the server needs to read this and it needs to figure out what user I am, like what my username is for security. So now the server, when it gets the images, I'm going to do it as a middleware because I need to authenticate all of the requests. So use. Whenever a request comes in, I need to send the request. So I need a library called node fetch. Okay. And then I'm going to send a request to /session. And then as part of the headers, I'm going for the authorization header. I'm going to pass in whatever the request that's coming in, request.get. Okay. Then I'm gonna compile it, convert it to a JSON, and then set the request user to the user object. Okay, and then we continue. Cool. So, and then now when I actually get to the images, I need to console.log the username. So console.log request.user. Okay, now let's see. So pay attention to how whenever I click take a picture, it's only sending the JWT token. And then the server is going to know who I am. So I'm going to click send image. But nothing's happening, so there's a bug. Cannot find module node fetch. Let's install the node fetch module. I is a shorthand for install. Oh, cannot find the module express. Let's install express. Okay, now it's running. So I'm going to try this again. When I take a picture, notice how I'm only in the request, but only sending the token. But then on the server, it knows who I am. You guys see that? Right? It's because the server is sending a request to this authentication API with the token I send it to get the user's identity. So if the user doesn't exist or the user.token.jwt token doesn't exist, then return rest.status 403. Error is a message. Please log in. Cool. So now the request goes to the server tries to find out who the user is, and if we cannot identify who the user is, we tell them, hey, we don't know who you are, please log in again. Otherwise, only then we continue. And if for whatever reason there's an error, promises have a catch callback. So for whatever other error, we also send back please log in. Cool. So now our login is done. Instead of now rec.user, the file name is actually rec.user.username. We want to save the image against the username. Okay. So now when I refresh the page, oh, I'm no longer logged in. That worked out awesome. But I might have forgotten my username. Let's check it. SB1. SB1 June 30. Submit. Alright, I logged in successfully, and I'm going to take a picture, and it's going to say sb1.png. Woohoo! Okay, so now our picture is taken against our name. So if we take another picture, it would just be the same. So now we got the login. We don't need to set a cookie because we're using a JWT token. So I need to use GM to draw text into the image. Okay. When another person joins the room, he should see memes of everybody in the chat room that updates in real time. Okay, this updates in real time. So which one should we do first? I think using GM to draw the text into the image, that would be pretty fun. So let's do that. So whenever I take a picture, I write something and I take a picture, it should draw into this image. Interesting. So instead of this, this is a front end coding. We got pretty far this time, so what I like to do is I like to git add, but I guess we don't have to do it this time. Anyway, so instead of this take picture, it's going to be an input box. Input box. Okay. So instead of the button element, it's going to be the input element. Alright. So instead of the button.onClick, instead of button add event listener click, I need to do input dot add event listener key up. So when the user is typing, and then if basically if it's an enter, we want to do something. So if it's not an enter, we don't want to do anything. So if e.key is not equal to enter, we don't do anything. So we just return. Otherwise, we know we need to send image. So we have image data and text data. And text data would just be input.value. Cool. Also, if the user just hit enter but didn't write anything, we don't want to allow it. So if it's not enter or input.value is falsy, like if it doesn't exist, we don't want to do it. So we send the image, the text to the server. So let's see if this worked. Hello world. Let's clear the network request. Hello world, I hit enter. And if you look here, the data we sent, there's image data and text data. So we're sending image and text to the server now. So a server needs to write this into the. Let's go to the server. When the server receives it, instead of doing that, we need to use GM. So let's see what instruction says. Next, use GM to draw the text into the image. So draw this. Okay, is it that easy? I need to require the GM library. Okay, and then I open up the image data, but actually I need to create the buffer first. So const image data request.body.image data img data. So this one we have to create the buffer with the image data and then run through GM. And then here's the text data. And then the file is just file name, or actually public file name. So we write to here. Is that all we have to do? Let's see, cannot find module GM, so we need to install GM. GM. Let's install GM. So now we start the server, everything works. Yesterday when I started the server, I ran into some error, and it turns out you might have to install a package called General Magic. So if you have issues, just Google the issue, and you should be able to find, or ask on the chat room for help. But let's see if what we have works. So log in again. Okay, hello world. Oh, 500. 500 means our server died. Write expects a callback function. So it's saying write, we need to pass in a function. This. So this function would be run when it's done creating the file. So once it's done creating the file, we send back a response. So now hit enter, and hello world. See, it's there is text inside the image. So now you can create messages. And then this should say woohoo. I got a question from someone saying sign in doesn't work. Let me try to go to a new private window. See if this works for me. So I'm going to go to this website. I don't have an account, so I'm going to sign up. I'm going to sign up as Donnie. Donnie at dump.com. June 30th is the password. Submit. Yay, I created a new account. Donnie, bro. Let me find something that looks like Donnie. This is Donnie, bro. So we have a Donnie guy. Seems to work for me. Maybe you need to create an account. Hopefully it works out for you. So when I load the page, it would be nice if this chat is focused. So that's an easy fix. Whenever I have, right after I get the input, I can do input.focus and the focus function. Now when I refresh the page, immediately I can start typing. Type happy. Type happy. Cool. So we have finished this part. This is good. Okay. When another person joins the room, she should see memes of everybody in the chat room that updates in real time. So I need to get a list of everybody in the chat room. So the API for that would be /images. So server, we need to create a GET request to API /images. And this would get a list of every user in the app. So, and to do that is fs.readdir. I'm gonna read the public folder, and then I'm going to send it back. Okay, I think I'm done now. And then on the front end, I'm going to do create a function called const render images. So I'm going to fetch for all the images, convert the result to JSON, and then let's see what data we get. Okay, so render images. Let me refresh. SB1. Ooh. I want to see what gets const.log. I get an error that says please log in. Oh, it's because I need to render images after I get the JWT. And then one of our users is having trouble. They keep getting 400. And did you look at, if you get a 400, could you look at the network request and then click on the 400, and what does the response tell you? Does it tell you like wrong username, wrong password? Usually when you have 400, it would tell you what's wrong. So maybe look at it and see what error you're getting. Oh. So when I send the request to get the images, I need to pass in the JWT header. That is a big problem. Okay, now I'm able to get all the images. Look at the response. That's a lot of images. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 users. So we need to get the users, right? So data.filter const users equals data.filter. So what does it mean to be a user? I think all of the PNG, if it ends with .png, that means it's a user image. So we search for, make sure it has .png. So url.split by period, and then the at index 1, that should be equal to png. So .filter returns an array of all the images with .png. So the best way to show you is to console.log users. See, here's all the users. Johnny, SB1, number. Okay, now if I map, get all the username, I shouldn't have to go get the username, and I think that's it. Now that I have all the users, I want to render and display all the users. So I just called render function and pass in users. And now my render function is going to take users and it's going to draw the images using that. So we do links. and we don't need anything here either. Okay, so now when I refresh the page, it got all of the users that's in the chat. So we don't want to display these pictures anymore. We just want the images. So we can look at the render function, just only put in the images. Yeah, so we have a bunch of people. Yeah, so here you go. And now every second we want to reload the image. So after we, but before we do that, there's going to be a problem. Like when I created a new file, notice how none of these updated. So yeah. So after I render images, I need to set timeout. And every second, I want to call render images again. So now every second, so if you look here, every second I'm getting all of the images, but there is a problem. Where is a problem? So the problem is my images is not updated. It's because if you look at this 304 request, nice. Someone else joined. Yeah, so this is because all the images are cached by the browser. Let's see. Let's see if I can draw something. Free drawing. Search for it. Free diagram. Free diagrams. Let's draw some free diagram. Hey, load it up. So the browser is going to send a request to get images, right? And then server is sending back a bunch of images, like an array of images. Image 1, image 2, image 3, etc. Server is sending back an array of images. Now the browser, before it sends a request, the browser has something called the cache. So the browser is going to check, have we seen this before? So the browser has a little system in here called the cache. And this cache belongs to the browser. So the browser checks the cache. And then if it's a no, then it sends a request to the server. Get image. So the problem is when the request goes to the cache is sending back the data. It says, oh, we already have this file. So the browser never actually gets the image from the server. So even though I'm saving the image in every time I take a picture, I'm actually sending a request to the server. So every time I take a picture, creating a new picture on the server, but the browser always gets it from its own cache. So it never goes to the server. So we need to do something called cache busting. So this is a technical term, cache bust. We need to cache bust this so it actually always goes to the server. And to cache bust, we add a URL in the end. So this is telling the browser to get the image, but we're going to change it. Date equals date.now. So now by updating the date, okay, I'm updating it too slow. So now if I say cache bust, say it updated. Now the image is always updating. So the next time it draws, say always updating. Cool. So now we have that. We cache bust. Okay, we busted the cache. Now we notice it's always flickering. This is always flickering. See, it always loads. We want to know when the image is all done loading, right? We want to know when is the image done loading. So our render image can we want to know when all the images are done loading. So this render users function is going through and it's going to get all of the images. Okay, so I'm going to do something tricky here. I'm going to get all of the images. Right, so image container dot query selector all. So this is image container here. So if I do image query selector all, it's gonna select all of the images. So I want to get cons image list equals. So here's all the images. And then I want to convert it into an array. Array.from. So I'm converting this into an array. And now my goal is when is all the images done loading? That's all I want to know. When did all the image finish loading? So right there, done. I want it to tell me that all the images are done loading. So let's do that. Image list for each image element, I want to add an event listener. So image.add event listener. When it's done loading, this function will run. So I'm going to count equals 0, and then count equals count plus 1. So now every image that's done loading, the count is going to go up by 1, up by 1, up by 1, done, done, done. So now if count is equal to the image length, they're equal, then we know all the images are done, right? So if count is equal to image list.length, then we alert done loading. Let's see if this works. So this be 1. Sign in. It's done loading. Yeah. Let's see again. Downloading. Yes. Then it's gonna load again. It's gonna say downloading. Okay. So now our done loading function works. I'm gonna delete it really quick so it doesn't spam me. Okay. So when it's done loading, I'm going to resolve. And what is resolve? My render function is going to return a promise. Resolve, reject. I'm not going to use reject, so that. All of this function is going to go inside this promise. So now my render function, I'm going to return a promise. And now, when all the images are done loading, I will resolve, saying I am done loading all of the image. So now, let's see who calls render function. So now if I return render users, then this function would run, right? Like console.log, done rendering images, re-rendering images. So if I return a promise here, that means this will only run after that is done. So now I have a nice promise chain going. So now the moment the image is done loading, it sends another request. Oops. I forgot to run the render images function. Okay. So the moment this is done, it's going to send another request. So now we have this flickering, right? What we want to do is, after everything is loaded, show the div, and then go to the next, load the new image in the next div. So we need two divs. I think I need a diagram to draw this better. So we need two image div like that. Div 1. And then div 2, right? So originally, this div is going to be loading. So loading means it's setting the .inner HTML equals new images. Right? And then after this is done, so this one is current container, meaning it is showing. So the current container means it's showing. So current container is showing the current text. So current container starts like this. And then all of the images are loaded into the new container, right? And then once all the images are loaded here, then we switch. This becomes showing, right? Because all of the image is loaded here. And then once all the image is done loaded here, then current image becomes that. And then this loads on the other one. Cool. That way there's no flicker. It only shows when, it only shows when all the images are done loading. So we need two elements. Image container. One and two. So we need an image container. One and 2. Right? And then so current container is the showing one. We start off at number 2. And this, let's call this the other container. Let's call this the other container. So other container points at image 1, and then current container points at div 2. Okay, so let's do that. So current container starts at div 2, and then other container starts at div 1. Right? So other container, it's always setting the inner HTML. So image container, I really meant like other container. So see how we're getting the image list and then we're setting the other container, the inner HTML, like how we're saying here, other container, sending the inner HTML. So wait, I don't know if you guys saw this. Other container was setting the inner HTML loading. Okay, so just like here, other container was setting the inner HTML, and we're waiting for all the images to load in the other container. So now when it's done loading, when it's done rendering images, what did we say? When it's done rendering images, the other container becomes the current container, right? So other container becomes current container. Now we don't know who the other container is, so we need a temp. Right, so we need to do a swap. So let's do this clearly. Other container, before we move it, we need to set a label called temp. Right? Temp points to other container, which is the div. Temp points to other container, and then other container points to current container, and current container points to temp. That. So current container points to temp. Okay. I think that's it. And then current container is showing and other container is hidden. So current container dot style dot display equals none. Well, let's do current container dot style dot background color equals to red. This way we know which is the current container and which is the other container. Let's see. So this loads. Oh, I cannot use const. My bad. This should be let. Sorry about that. Let's try this again. This is the... Nice. See how it turns green? It turns red, it's showing. And then that turns red. Then actually we need to set the current container to red and then the other one to other container to white. Okay. Let's make this more clear. So the red one should be showing, the white one should be loading. So yeah, this is the current container now, this is the thing, and then it's swapped. Now this is the current container. Now that is the current container. Now that is the current container. So now since it's swapping, if we just set the display, we should never ever have it flicker again. So current container dot display is block, and then this guy's display is none. Okay. So the first time it would show so yeah, that's that switch. If I update my chat, like I think works. If I wait 2 seconds. Oh. Yeah, it worked. So after it submits, I think it should clear the input text. That would be nice. Cool. So after it sent the request, I think I don't want to do input.value equals an empty string. So nice, somebody joined. Thanks for joining and testing it out. Looks like everything works now. Yeah. I'm gonna make my submission face. This should update to a submission face. So the more images there are, the slower it takes to update. Cool. So flickering, there's still a tiny bit of flicker. I think it's when the DOM element switches. That's how it happens. I think instead of one div and another div switching like this, if every image just itself switches, I think that might prevent this quick flicker. So we're done. The only thing I would do differently is I would actually, the first time it renders, maybe I want to display that. Maybe I want to set the other container display none, like when the page first loads, so that right when the page loads, it would show the picture at the first time. Yeah, but I think when, as a user, if I'm a user using this app, when I first come to the app, I should be able to see it loading, so I know something is going on. Otherwise, I might think it's broken. So I actually think it's better if I didn't have this in. So I'm not gonna put it in. And now we are done. So okay, I'm gonna have to remove all of the .png files, so sorry about that, guys. Solves the last problem of JS5. Okay, I am done with JS5. 5. This is creating a MemeChat. Cool. So now let's look at my submission. Okay, it looks like a lot of my code got reviewed now. Just waiting for the last one to be submitted. And now we can start GraphQL. There are no lesson docs for this lesson. At this point, the expectation is for students to be able to ask questions. The idea behind JS6 is that by JS6, these are industry frameworks like React, GraphQL, Socket.io, and the idea is if you join a new company, you're going to be using tools and frameworks that you have never used before, right? Like LinkedIn uses Ember.js, Google uses their own internal framework. Facebook uses their own version of React that you might have never seen before. Netflix uses their own tools. So every company you join, you're going to be using a new library that you've never seen before. So the idea behind JS6 is that you're going to be exposed to new industry frameworks and you're supposed to ask questions and actively in the chat room to figure out what you don't understand. And that would train you to become better software engineer when you join a new company. I think with most junior engineers, when they join a new company, the hardest problem they have is asking questions because they get really self-conscious and they don't want to look stupid. So JS6 is supposed to help you train your soft skills, which is to ask questions aggressively. So for that reason, there's no lesson doc. Okay. So then I'm looking at, so the first lesson is GraphQL Intro. It wants you to follow the documentation. So I'm going to prepare checkout P1. Well, get checkout master. Make sure P1 is in master, and it is. So now I can continue. I can start this problem with P1. So by JS6, you should be really good at Git. And if you feel like you're not really good at Git, you should ask and actively figure out how to use Git to help your workflow get better. Okay. So install Apollo's GraphQL middleware so your server has the playground. That's cool. What is the playground? Let's see. Integrating with Node.js middleware. So if I'm looking at this, this is interesting. I don't know what this is. But I know what apply middleware is. And I know what listening means. So I think if I just copy these 3 lines, I could maybe have something working. So let's see. So I need to install this. This is the only library I need. I should be in JS6 now. So JS6 touch1.js. npm install save this. Save Apollo server express. And then I'm looking at the sample code. Where did this app come from? App is undefined. So this is going to happen a lot when you look at example code. These variables are undefined. So just when you see this, you take a best guess. What can app be? And if you see app.listen, you know that app has a listen property. And what other thing has a listen property? Express. So I also need express. Cool. So 1.js. So I'm gonna take their code. Then I'm gonna start with here. So when solving these challenges, I'm going to be walking you through my thought process and what kind of questions I would be asking. So the first question I will ask is, app is undefined. What is app? And then if I can't figure out, I would ask, but in this case, I figured it out. App.listen. App has a listen key. So we know that we need to create express. And then app would be, right? And then now we have app.listen. So why app.listen usually just takes in an object, takes in a number. I don't know why it's doing this. So I'm going to change it to what I know is. Okay, so that's good. And server is a function that has, server is an object that has a key called apply middleware. So where is server defined? Server is defined by using new Apollo server, which comes from this library. So Apollo server is defined. But this .schema file, we have never seen that before. And this is not a library because there's a dot. So this is a separate file. We don't have that file. So what is that file? So that would be a question I ask. What is that schema file that they're talking about? That's what I will ask the engineers. What is this? Typedef and resolvers. That's not a library. It's just a file. What's that? I don't know. So I look at the documentation. It says defining a schema. So this schema, that schema, maybe it makes sense. Oh, and there's also a getting started. Maybe I want to look at getting started. And then here's a typedef. Typedef. Maybe I can copy this. So instead of the schema, I don't want this. The schema, I need typedef and resolver to be in here. Otherwise, they're undefined. So typedef is that. I have no idea what this means, but I recognize this symbol. It means they're all strings. This is all a string. Okay? So typedef is merely just a string. That's simple enough. What is resolver? So this looked like an array, but don't be afraid. It's all a string because of this thing. So what is a book? What is a resolver? Define your dataset at the following, bottom of index.js. This is an array of objects, I know that. So they want me to copy this in, follow them, copy this in. But in my mind, I'm still thinking, what is resolvers? This is undefined. And then they tell you here, resolver looks like that. So resolver. So in the main code that I got, typedef is now defined, right? Typedef is a string. GQL here just means it's templating it. So the question's, what is GQL? I would have to guess that's GraphQL. That's exactly right. GQL, so in JavaScript, you can label strings in a way. So this string, you could do it like this, like just a string, and it will work, right? So I'll show you that later. But if you just make it a string like that, it will just work. GQL just labels it, so you get like coloring and stuff like that. Makes it pretty. Hope that answers your question, but I would take it out so you can see what it looks like without it. So in the original code, typedef is a string, and then resolver is an object, and this object has a query, which is another object, and then books is a function that returns books. Return books. And rather than creating so many variables, I like to keep my code short and concise so I don't get confused. Okay, so resolver seems to be a very simple object. It has a query object, a books object, it returns an array, makes sense. These are all defined now, makes sense. I think everything looks good to me. I am ready to run the function, so run the server. Cool. Whoa, this is a really cool rocket. I didn't know you can print out rockets. This is wrong. The reason why it shows me the wrong one is because I didn't update it. This should really be https cerny.com. No port. QL path. Let's run it again. Let's do nodemon. Okay, now it looks better. So server ready at cerny.com/GraphQL. Let's look at cerny.com/GraphQL. Wow, it looks beautiful. So we get this beautiful GraphQL. Okay, that's cool. So in a few lines of code, let's go over the code. So we create our server app normally, and then we add their Apollo Server Express library, and then create a string. So if I take out this GraphQL GQL in the front, make it a literal string like this, then I don't need GQL anymore. Now if I run the app, it'll still work. Everything still works as normal. So it's just helpful to have it there. You don't need it, but it makes it look prettier. Okay. So now book. If you look here, book has a title and author. So in this new website that you have, let me paste it in so you guys can see. This helps you build a website. So you have books. Now you have books, and there's a title and author. And then there's a description for what book has. So that is GraphQL. Cool. So how do we get books? If you want to send a request to the server, if you look at the documentation, books, right? So I want books. And then within books, I want all the title. And then I do shift enter. No, I do command enter or control enter. It sends the request to the server and it gives me the data, right? So previously in JS5, you learned about REST. There is a problem with REST. And the problem with REST is that you have to send a lot of requests. So when you send a request, to REST, then you get back all of the data. All the data. But with GraphQL, you get to choose what data you want. Pick the data you want. With GraphQL, you get to pick the data you want, so one request. Okay, so what does the challenge say? We installed Apollo GraphQL middleware. Done. So we need to create type defs for lessons and Pokemon provided by the lessons API and Pokemon API. Okay. Oh wow, this is given to you, so I didn't have to figure it out. Wow, this is the Pokemon search. Ooh, here's the Pokemon. Okay, cool. So I need the lessons API first. Wow, that's a lot of lessons. Okay. So I no longer want book. So we have a lesson. And if I look at the lesson, it has an ID, description, doc URL, video URL, GitHub URL, order. It's a lot of stuff. Copy that and paste it in here. So hard to paste. Oh no, I can't copy it. No. No. Oh yeah. Okay, let's see what I need. I need an ID. ID. I need a description. A doc URL. GitHub URL. These are all strings. I need a video URL. I need an order. But order isn't a string. This order is a number. So number is a number. And then I have a title. Title is a string. Chat URL is a string. At is a string. Updated at is a string. And then I have an array of challenges. But look, I don't want to get into challenges yet. So if I want to get lessons, I send back an array of lesson. Cool. So now resolver, when someone sends a request to get all the lessons, I send back fetch request. Fetch to the API. I send the request here, and then convert everything to JSON, and whatever the fetch gives me back, I send back. So let's see if that works. Unknown type number. So number is wrong. I always get confused. Maybe integer makes sense. Or int. Nice, it seems to recognize int. So if I go to my GraphQL playground and I look at my docs, now I can see lessons. There's a lessons, right? And then this ID that's integer. So does that mean I can click lessons? And then I want the lesson title. Oh, fetch is not defined. So to get fetch. Now I'm gonna send the request again. Nice, look, I got all of the titles, right? So users don't have to know about this API at all. So GraphQL is a very nice middleman between the browser. Let me show you. Here's how GraphQL works. your browser sends a request, GraphQL request, specifying what they want, what we want. And then your server, use your server, can get data from any place you want. So a server gets data from like api.code.com /. And then my server can also get data from Pokemon. Right, so a GraphQL is a middleman that sits in the middle. The browser sends a request to GraphQL, and GraphQL gets the data and sends it back. So browser just say, I want this data, I want that. Pretty cool. So the browser says, I want title, and then we get all the title. But I want description. Got all the description. Really cool. Really cool. So now every lesson has an array of challenges. So I need to do challenge. So to have array of challenges, this lesson type defines the queryable field for every lesson in code.com curriculum. So you can even write documentation. So when people go to your GraphQL website, when people in the world go to your GraphQL website, they look at your docs, they will see nothing. Document. So sad. Okay. Comments. We don't need comments. Then the query type is special. Yeah. So we need a type challenge. So let's set this up. Challenge has ID. Challenge has all this. Copy. Oh, copy. So challenge has ID, which is an integer. We don't need status. I don't know what that means. It needs a title. And it has an order. And it has a created at and updated at chat URL. We don't need lesson ID. So this is it. Challenges. And then lesson has an array of challenges. Okay, so now let's see. Let's go to the playground. If I look at the docs, the lesson have challenges, which is an array of challenges. So if I also want to get all the challenges for each lesson, I can specify I want the title for each challenge and then send the request. Nice. So foundations of JavaScript, all the challenges here, all the challenges here. I want the challenge title and description. So in my description, let's close out this lesson. 1, 3, 4. End to end. Challenge. Oh, I finished end to end. So now I'm on this GraphQL intro. So you could see, here's what the challenge description looks like for this problem. So now I got the type def for lessons. Now I need to do it for the Pokemon API. So the Pokemon API goes like this. So here's the Pokemon API. So what's interesting is I can see this query parameter. See how you have a limit? Count, I bet how many Pokemon there are that exist. So if I set the limit to something bigger, like 1000, it should give me all the Pokemons in the system. Look at that. So many Pokemons. 963. 0 to 963 is 964 Pokemon. This request I'm going to send, get all of my Pokemon. Okay, so get the Pokemon. I need a new query called mons, and then it's an array of mon object. Type Pokemon. Pokemon has an ID that's a number. So you have an ID here. I guess we don't have. We have a name for sure. So Pokemon definitely has a name, which is a string. So if I want to get all of the Pokemon, then I return fetch this URL and r.json. Okay, I think that works. Let's try to get all of our Pokemon. So now if I look at the docs, I can see I can grab Pokemon now, right? And it has a string. So if I want lessons, I want Pokemons. And all of the name errors. Not find one for field query.pokemons. So the reason is it's dot results. So we need to change the data a little bit. So dot then the data we get, we need to return data.results. Okay. When we return data.results, it gives you the array. Now we can try sending this again. So if you want to see what's cool about GraphQL, I think this kind of sums it up. I want all the Pokemon and I want all the lessons, and I click send. I send one request, right? One request. But I get all of the Pokemon and I get all of the lessons, right? So from two different places. So if you look here, I send one request. The server goes to code.com and it goes to Pokemon.com, grabs all the data and send all of the data back to me. With REST, if you use REST, you have to send two requests, one to Code.com API and one to Pokemon.com directly. Okay. So now we are done with this part. We did all that. And then change the GraphQL URL to use your own URL. So example of this. So if I view source, this is the entire file. So I need this whole file. And I need to put it in index.html. So it's telling me that this, instead of changing this here, I need to be changing it to my GraphQL, to my own server. Let's do that. Yeah. So it's calling the Pokemon get Pokemon. So the request that they're sending is get Pokemon. Let me show you guys what that means. In this GraphQL playground, if I send the request here, my request is query Pokemons here, but they're sending a get Pokemon query, so I might be screwed. Let's see how make this work. So if I go to cerny.com, my server, I need to app.use express.static. Click. Now I should be able to go to the website, and now there's a Pokemon search, and then I'm going to start sending GraphQL requests. So PO. It gives me a 400 and says cannot query field search on type query. So we need to provide something called search. Okay. So search sends back an array of Pokemon. Okay. Then because I have a query called search, I need a function search return. So I want to see if my function is being called. And then I run the Pokemon app. And again, unknown argument str on field search. Unknown argument str. So the server never got request here. So this never runs. So guessing search takes in a variable called str, which is a string. And that is how it works, I think. Let's see. Wow, I get 200. I was right. Okay. So my search function runs. So in my GraphQL, in my query, if I do a parentheses, that means I'm taking in a variable called str, a string. So I can also send the same request here by typing in, let me refresh the page. I'm going to call search and str pol, and I want all the names. Yep. So I can also send a request like this. I think this is faster than typing this over and over again. So I'm just going to use my GraphQL queries to make me faster. So now if I type in a search result, how do I get all of the response, right? So how do I get what the user A, B, C? Where's the argument? A, B, C. Where is the data? My server needs this input POL. Nice. It's in the second argument. Cool. So I don't need this. This is args, second argument. And console.log args.str. I send the request. My server logs would just log what the user passed in, which is POL. So now we have this. We need all the Pokemons that has this string. So to do that, we send a fetch request to the Pokemon. So data.results is all of the Pokemon, right? So I want to filter out Pokemon. All of the Pokemon where the name matches what the user input is. So return Pokemon.name. Does it include the argument.string? It does. Good to go. So now, POL. I got an array, POL. Yeah, got an array of Pokemon that matches the name. So if I want to do like Charizard, send all this. Which means if I do it in Pokemon search here, it should work, right? POL. Yeah, see, it's sending a request to my server. It's all working. Cool. And then when you click on it, it doesn't work. So cannot query field get Pokemon. So we need a get Pokemon query in addition to search. So now let's just add that in. Get Pokemon. Get Pokemon. So when you call get Pokemon, you probably need to pass in an input, right? To get what Pokemon you want to get. And this should return one Pokemon's information. And then since I created a get Pokemon, I need to define a function. Get Pokemon args console.log args, and then return an empty object for now. So let's try this again. I'm gonna click. Ooh, cannot query field image on type Pokemon. So if I look at the request, it's telling me what it's getting. It's trying to get the name and the image. So my Pokemon needs to have an image. So this Pokemon type, I need to specify it has an image. So click on it. So we got back a response. String polyrect. So now all we have to do is send a request to the Pokemon search where, let's look at the API. Can I just do Pokemon/Bulbasaur? Seems like I can. Nice. And then in the results, the image would be sprites dot front default. Front default. Okay. So when the request comes to get the Pokemon, I'm pulling. I need to send a fetch request. So send a fetch request, and then pass in the user input. Which is args.str.then convert that to JSON, and data, return data, return name is data.name, I think. name is data.name, that's right. And then image is data.sprites.front default. Image is data.sprites.front. Okay, so let's see if this worked. POL. I click on polybag. It shows the information. Okay, so this is a good time to stop. The basic functionality all works. What we could do is avoid sending these requests over and over again. So for that, for optimization, I'll just do tomorrow. So that, yeah, I'll just do tomorrow. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys tomorrow.